All right, we're back.
Back in action.
In action? In action or inaction? Because I feel like a
In
lot of the last 2 weeks has just been inaction.
a lot of inactivity. Just so much sitting around eating nothing, probably nothing good. Just lots
Who else
of
has the quarantine
things.
15 going on?
Yeah, exactly. That's on the conservative end. Although I have been riding my bike a lot, so that's been like the only thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Has the heat not been terribly oppressive in Phoenix?
No, we've actually had some of the most delightful weather for this entire quarantine season.
Ooh.
So that's nice. But we are starting to get up there now. Like in the next week or two, we're gonna start seeing like upper 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So it's happening. It's happening. I didn't, I thought maybe there would be some quarantine blessings that came our way, but turns out God still hates us.
Just fire from the sky. But I mean, here's the thing though, like that's just Phoenix generally.
It is, because God hates Phoenix. He's decided to punish us for the sins of our forefathers. And
He's merciful.
namely that their sin was that they moved here.
He's merciful on 99.99999% of the world, but the city limits of Phoenix.
He's like, oh Lord, no, I'm not going to that God-forsaken apocalyptic landscape. Oh no, 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 no.
Or oh
no.
me, oh me, I'm not going to that me forsaken landscape.
Exactly. Oh my me.
Sorry.
Oh,
that was silly.
M.
But that's what people come to. That's why people tune into Pop Culture Coffee Hour, not to be edified, sometimes to be scandalized.
It's just slightly though, just like minimal scandal.
Yeah, minimal scandal. Now with less scandal.
Yeah, 30% less scandal. Now made with real beef.
Yeah, most of the podcast is just hot. It's empty air. It's like when you get those potato chips and you look and it's just like the bottom third of the.
You're like, oh,
a lot of hot air.
Rip off. Oh,
this podcast is totally a rip off, but you get what you pay for.
You do, exactly.
So anyway, now that we're being self-deprecating, how's it going?
It's good. It's Holy Week. Am I right?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's been mostly good. I think it's kind of weird to be in the situation right now, obviously, like just the, I don't know, kind of like the juxtaposition of the fact that like the time of the church year is such that it's normally like our busiest and we're just like running from thing to thing to thing, and it's hard to kind of keep track of anything that's happening. But then the day to day is like not that way now, and even the point where like the church services can be viewed from like the comfort of our own homes and all of that kind of stuff. Like it takes a more, I think, kind of like active intentionality to act like you're at church. Like our kids still act like they're at home because they are.
Yeah.
And it's just been a weird dynamic. But it still is Holy Week, and I'm fortunate enough to be kind of one of the few choir members that gets to like go to the services and stuff. So
oh cool.
That's been really nice to be able to go participate with the few people. Which I don't know what's weirder, right? Like seeing like doing the live services, because I haven't been to like all of them, for example, right? Because you can't always go to all of them. But I don't know what's weirder is like doing the live services with no one there or the digital streaming. Like I don't know what feels stranger, but either way, it's not a ideal situation,
Yeah. And it's all strange. And I think like the point is to sort of remember that none of this is normal. Which I think Father Andrew, like his latest, I think it was like his blog or podcast or both, because he does his sermons like that sometimes, like to remember that this is not normal. And we don't know when we're going to get back to normal, but this is definitely not normal, and hopefully not to get used to it and to turn this into kind of like a weird, this is how we do things from now on.
I don't know anybody that feels that way though. Do you? Like, I feel like everyone that I have to is like, I'm so freaking tired of computers and I'm so tired of screens. And I'm
Yes,
really grateful for that part of this actually, where it seems like people
100%.
are like bored of technology.
I did a couple of like teen lock-ins over the course of the last like week or so,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like leading into Holy Week, except we did them virtually over Zoom. And for me, it's been incredibly awesome to see that like teenagers, right, who spend most of their time on their phones, stereotypically like, oh, the young people are on the TikToks and the Snapchats, right, and we sort of shake our fists at them with righteous indignation, and they in particular are so over this. Um,
Mm.
and they are the ones who like they miss going to church and they miss being face to face with people, and they miss little things like hugs, just sort of like contact with
Yeah.
their friends, right? They miss being able to go to church and sort of like be there with people and sometimes sing in the choir or whatever it is. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like loss, and I think there's a lot of, hopefully that loss is being channeled in this like good sort of way, like longing for the things that are true and lovely, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think we're seeing that amongst this group of people that we sometimes sort of dismiss as like they don't know any better, the kids, and they all the day long they're on their TikToks and the whatever, but they're missing it just like everybody else, and it's nice that they're missing
Yeah.
it. Because I think like that, because we've talked about this a little bit before. I feel like that is one of the opportunities that's been presented to us. Like I think that there's some level of providence that this happened during the course of Great Lent. Like I don't know. I've had a lot of, we're still sort of in the intro to the podcast. We're not even into it just yet, but I've had like the image of, Jesus overturning the tables of the money changers in my head for whatever reason recently. And I've had kind of Psalm 50, where David is writing, and the Lord doesn't accept our whole burnt offerings. The Lord wants, a contrite heart.
Mm.
And increasingly, so much of this feels like the tables have been turned over, and the sort of superficial stuff has been shut down to us, so we can dig a little bit deeper during the course of this Lenten season. And I hope we're doing it. That's like,
Yeah.
I hope we're doing it.
Jesus is like, my, how the turntables have. Yeah, no, I feel you. Like, I definitely think this is an opportunity that has been given to us from the Lord. Like, there's, this prayer that we pray every morning as a family at the beginning of the day. Like, help me to see all unforeseen events as sent by you. Right? Help me to remember that all unforeseen events are sent by you. And like, I feel like that's got it. Like, that is the eyes of faith, right? That like there's this, because I've been thinking a lot. It's been such a weird like month, man, because in some ways it's been the best of times, and in other ways it's been the worst of times, right? Like the worst of times pretty much comes down, I think, to just being stuck on a computer all the time to do any work whatsoever at all.
Yeah.
The best of times though is it's like afforded me, I feel like, a lot of opportunity with my kids and stuff like that. Like we actually read the entire first Harry Potter book, which is not a thing that we probably would have done in normal time because it would have taken
so cool.
months. And so now we're already onto the Chamber of Secrets, which is like so fun to be reading, them these books. And I taught my 4-year-old how to ride a bike. Like she can ride a bike now, and like
with no training wheels.
With no training wheels. And she's incredible at it.
Wow.
It's not even like it's like she's full on riding her bike. She doesn't really know how to stop very well, but she can totally ride it. She picked it up almost like that. It was crazy.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. And I kind of had this moment too, like where, again, like I have these in parenting, I kind of have these moments of like, oh, this must be like how God is as a father, like, I mean, it's just glimpses and obviously like shadows of it. But as I was trying to teach her how to ride the bike, there came a couple times where I just like knew she was going to fall over and like let her, like I just let her fall down, because I was like, okay, the goal here is my goal is not to keep her from getting hurt. My goal is to teach her how to ride a bike. And part of that means learning how not to ride a bike. Like it doesn't work if I try to, put both my pedals on the bike while it's not moving. Like that's not going to teach her how to ride a bike, right? She's going to have to learn to kind of get going on her own. And falling is part of that process. And I sort of feel like that's a lot of what is going on around us right now. I feel like the Father is like, look, I want to make you into my children. Like that's my goal. My goal is to make you like my son, to make you like me. And part of the way that we got to do that is I got to let you fall. I got to let you scrape your knees, and I got to let you, die. Because ultimately that really is the ultimate kind of like falling off the bike in the grand cosmic metaphor. Like we're held securely in him. He knows at the end of the day that falling off the bike isn't going to like really harm us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
he's already beaten it. He's already beaten death. Yeah. So he knows that like letting like us dying is not really that big of a problem for him.
Yeah.
As evidenced on Lazarus Saturday, right? When he's like, again, he confirms the universal resurrection. Like, yeah, you guys are all going to die. And that's not an issue for me. That's an issue for you. You're way more scared about dying than I am of you dying. I'm not scared about that. Like, it's going to help you. It's actually going to help you learn how to ride the bike.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been really humbling for me in kind of all of this is like, oh, he's not using this to punish us because he hates us. He's actually doing this because he loves us. Like, this is a thing that's an opportunity, right? Like I was driving to church on Lazarus Saturday, for example, and kind of had this prayer in my mind. And as I'm thinking about kind of all of the stuff that's going on, as I'm going from the 60 freeway on the like interchange to the 202 over here in East Mesa, my car just dies right on the middle of this like overpass and starts clicking. The power steering goes out while I'm going 70 miles an hour on the freeway. And it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like more terrifying afterwards. I was like, all right, it's Holy Week. Like that was my first thought. I was like, it's like, here we go. Holy Week and go. And I didn't lose my like cool at all, but except for just like the physical kind of fear that settled in of like, what am I going to do? Like, where do I go? How do I, whatever. So I just like let the car just like coast out as far as it could and gradually pulled it over to the corner or to like to the shoulder and just parked on an off ramp. And then called my friend who was also on the way to church, like who's the bass in the choir. And I was like, are you on your way to church right now? And he was like, yeah. And he said, I need you to pick me up on the way. I'm stranded on the, but like, there was something about that I was like, this is certainly from the Lord. Like here I am on my way to church and I'm being presented with literally the thing that we at some point sing, like, let us lay aside all earthly cares, including like cars that don't work, including whatever, and remember kind of like the cosmic value of what we're doing. And so that was kind of a fun experiment in, Holy Week.
That's cool. That is cool. And I hope we're doing that, right? Because one of the questions that I have for myself, and one of the questions that I have, I guess, for us, to use this sort of bike metaphor, is to what extent are we kind of like holding onto our training wheels? Mm-hmm. And I mean that in different ways, right? Like part of me, so it's Holy Wednesday as we're recording this, right? Yesterday was Holy Tuesday. Holy Tuesday, of course, is when there's the very famous hymn of Cassiani that's sung during the matins that are sung on Holy Tuesday nights. And I've seen a lot of the sort of like the big ornate hymns being shared around on social media. And I ask myself the question, right? Because like my parish doesn't particularly do like a very big rendition of it. Like, do I miss the hymns? Am I longing for the hymns and the sort of external trappings more than I am for, like what the hymns are actually saying and who the hymns are actually saying it to? Like, do I miss the hymn of Cassiani more than I long for that like sort of penitential posture before the Lord? Like if you listen to the actual words of it, like the sinful woman who's, like washing the feet of the Lord with her hair. These are the feet that Adam and Eve heard in the garden. Like, am I longing for that more than I'm longing for repentance? I don't know.
Yeah, that line in particular was so powerful to me last night, right? That like the ones that the feet that she's wiping with her tresses, that she's falling down before and coming to are the same ones that made Eve hide with fear. Like it was just like, what? It's crazy.
Yeah. And I don't know. That's what I wonder. I wonder for myself. I wonder that like, do we miss the hymn and the sort of externals more than the actual sort of substance? Like, are we kind of clinging to the training wheels and not actually ready to ride our bikes as Christians. You know,
Where do
because
you
there's
think
like,
the balance of that is though? Like, you know, in terms of like kind of like being like a part of it that's both. Like,
oh, sure.
you know what I mean? Like I certainly wouldn't put myself kind of in the category of like strictly missing the penitential aspect, because I definitely like, you know, even when I heard like our, you know, someone chant it last night, I was like so happy to be hearing it in person,
Mm,
you know, rather than to be hearing it from the interwebs or whatever.
mhm.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm curious as to like how do we walk that balance then of like moving from one to the other, or kind of letting one be transformed into part of the other. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I think it's a good question, and that's why I think I've had Psalm 50 in my head at the same time. You know,
Mm.
and when the Lord is telling His people, you know, I don't desire your sacrifice, I desire a contrite heart. He's not telling them not to do the sacrifices. You know, He's not telling them
Yeah.
not to worship in the temple. And of course, like Jesus comes and He gives us this bloodless worship, which He commands us to do, right? Like, take, eat, this is my body. He's telling us to worship. He's telling us to do like the real sacrifice. Um, so I think it's just like it's living in the tension between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not wanting the thing for its own sake, not abandoning it, right? But sort of like hopefully using it to get to the prototype, like using these external sort of realities to help point us in the direction of the kingdom, right? Not to get kind of lost and to turn them into idols in their own right, but to kind of pass through them. Um, and sort of taking comfort in them at the same time, because like we are physical beings, we are emotional beings, like we do take some level of we need that, right? We need that level of
Mm.
reassurance. um but I think it's like it's a kind of a dynamic tension between the two of them. And I don't know, like I don't know if I'm being like overly critical of myself, I don't know if I'm being sort of overly critical of others. But it's a question that's kind of been bopping around in my head over the course of the last couple of days. um you know, what are we actually missing, what are we actually longing for? um I mean, here's another question, which has been on my mind too, because like I've seen there's a lot more like live stream services, right? And there's like daily live streams that are happening.
Mm.
um like they were a lot of these chapels were like not doing anything close to daily services before they start doing the live streams. Like, part of me asks the question, right? To what extent are these prayers only being offered because they're being live streamed? You know,
Mm.
as opposed to like prayer is a thing that is valuable in and of itself, and we will hold these prayers like in the future, right? Even if nobody is there, like we'll continue doing the prayers because the prayers are valuable in and of themselves, not just for the perspective. I don't know if I'm being cynical, but
Yeah.
those are
No, so I guess maybe what I'm curious about is like what's I don't know, like what would make someone want to do the services live stream if they're not going to do them in person? Like why would that suddenly change, do you think?
um why would they be happening? Like, why is there more pressure to do them now live stream?
Or I mean, I get why there's more pressure, but I would
Yeah.
think that like if a community is not doing them in the first place, like why would they suddenly decide like, oh well, we're live streaming it, so we should probably do it? You know, I guess maybe I'm not making sense,
Yeah.
but like why would that matter?
I don't know. It seems to me like, I don't know. I guess the question the question that I ask, and it's I don't know. Again, I can't tell if I'm being cynical or if I'm asking a
Mm-hmm.
good question. I might just be being cynical, right? Like, to what extent is prayer, or do we value prayer because of what it is? And to what extent are we just sort of keeping up appearances because like everything is happening online now? And it's
Yeah.
like prayer is not valuable if nobody sees it, right? And
Yeah.
we're kind of like doubling down on things that are visible now. And when the live streams end, like there's no need for daily church services because nobody's going to be there anyway. And right.
Yeah.
um I don't know, I can't
I,
tell if that's like I said, I can't tell if that's cynical or a real question.
yeah. No, I think I understand maybe like kind of like that bigger picture, but maybe like I think trying to like instantiate it in the services themselves, like maybe is a little bit difficult, right? Because I do wonder like kind of what you're saying of like how much we value prayer for what it is in terms of like its communion with God, in terms of its kind of looking and drawing near to him and sitting with him and being with him so that we might become like him, as opposed to kind of, and I've always wondered this, like do we or is it just like our way of kind of like making a cosmic wish list and kind of treating God like Santa, like
Yeah.
and we want this and we want that and we want that, And like, and if I could get, a new bike, and if I could have a Red Ryder BB gun with a compass built into the stock, like that would be really great.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
No. But I guess what I am even wondering about, like, as we pray this week, like I feel like there is this really kind of obvious, clear kind of parallel process that we're in with Jesus. And like, I don't know, man, like I think I've started kind of in this place of like, of grief with this, and maybe this is all part of the process, right? But now I'm almost like in this place of like acceptance of where we're at with this, that like, okay, this is what it is. This is how it is. And like Jesus, we're being led where we don't want to go. Right. And we can do that two ways. We can do it kicking and screaming, or we can go with him that we might die with him. Like, that's kind of, the opportunity that we're presented with here. And I almost wonder, like, is there some way, because I agree it's not normal. It's not okay, all of that kind of stuff. And it's like the call of the cross to go where you don't want to go, and to do so like gladly, single-heartedly, single-mindedly. And I know that's like, it's a hard kind of reality to enter into, but I do wonder, like, is this sort of the path that the Lord has given us so that we might really truly become like him? Learning to bear even the thing that gives us the most grief, kind of with this joy, that comes into the world through the cross. Like, that's really the only way too, right? That we saying, like, for through the cross is joy come into all the world. And I don't know, man, like there's just so much stuff to kind of, I think, like, prayerfully consider in all of this, and to contemplate. And like, I feel like I very clearly see the Lord's hand in it in a lot of ways. I've even been thinking about, like, the Israelites kind of journey with God, and how when it's just this kind of constant, like, they fall out of the covenant, so then they're like oppressed by foreigners, and then they repent, and then God reestablishes them, and like so on. And so, like, there's kind of this like ongoing like process until they finally find themselves in exile and all of this kind of stuff. And I sort of feel like, we're living that right now, except that, like, we're not being oppressed by like some sort of like foreign army. We're being oppressed by some foreign organism, right? And by that I don't mean like Chinese organism. By foreign I mean like non-human, right? Like, it's foreign to our system. And like, that to me seems like, oh, I wonder if there's something in this, like, that God is simply like, you're stepping out of my covenant, and now I'm like, I don't know, kind of like giving you this foreign oppressor to kind of wake you up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I think that my additional layer to the question would be like, are we actually in the process of repenting, or are we simply building up new facades? Are we actually riding the bike, or are we just kind of like getting a new pair of training wheels? I don't know. I think that's a question I've been asking of myself a lot, because I think like the process of repentance is just like, it's ongoing and it never ends, and it's like your response to things can be superficial. And I've like kind of thought that I've repented before, and I'm just sort of like deluding myself and just sort of like putting on airs and so forth. And especially since so much of this is kind of like living in public, like so much of this is kind of like online. It's like for the eyes of other people. That's kind of the question that I'm asking myself. Because I totally agree with you. Like this is the opportunity. This is totally the opportunity.
Well, how's that for a way of introduction?
We haven't introduced anything.
We haven't talked about anything yet. I mean, but sort of we have. I think like that's kind of what this whole episode is about anyway. Is just like, can we check in and process? I mean, like, what's going on? I mean, like, in the world for real. I mean, this is pop culture coffee hour, so this isn't necessarily like pop culture, but it's salient. It's like
Yeah.
definitely the world that we're in right now. So
Yes.
to that regard, it's the thing that everybody knows about. So it is kind of like popular culture right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can just do a kind of like quick follow up before we kind of get to the
Let's
meat
take a
and
breath
potatoes.
because we got deep very quick.
We
Let's take a
did.
deep breath.
We jumped right into the deep end of a pool that is not yet heated. We just were like,
there is water in our lungs. Let us sputter for a moment before we.
No, not in the lungs. Not in the lungs. We don't want to talk about anything going into the lungs right now.
Fair. Too soon.
Nothing in the lungs.
Too soon.
Nothing in the lungs.
Speaking of not lungs, Effective Christian Ministry. How's that for a newsworthy transition?
It is a thing.
It is a thing. Again, like it's a course that we put together, launched it back in January, which feels like 5 years ago at this point. This is a time for kind of creative responses to ministry, which a lot of people are doing. A lot of people who are students of the course have been doing. Said 400 something people are already in the course. Entire parishes are taking it collectively as groups, which is super cool. effectivechristianministry.org. I think like if anything, right, like it's providential, I think, in retrospect, that we put this course out back in January. And then so many of kind of like the ministry facades have sort of fallen down over the course of the last couple of months. Like this is the perfect time to get back to basics and think about like what the heck ministry is and how we actually do it in a non-superficial sense. So I continue to be very pleased with that course. So hopefully everybody has a chance to check it out.
Yeah, do it. Wandering the Desert, still doing that thing, and I think in this season in particular, it's been really helpful for me personally, to kind of like take some time just to reflect a little bit every week on what we're experiencing. So if you haven't checked out Wandering the Desert yet, go give it a listen. Maybe it'll be a little bit of common struggle that we can share together.
Yeah.
Or not. Maybe it'll offend you. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for a little, again, low-key scandal. That's what we're wanting.
But I mean, that's what happens sometimes when the curtain lifts. And I think one of the cool things about Wandering the Desert is that it is very honest. It's very vulnerable. It's very unexpected. And it's a good offering, especially at this time when so much of the curtain has kind of collapsed around us.
So much.
Be the Bee, still doing Be the Bee basically every week. The latest episode came out this past Monday. We were blessed to have Hank Hanegraaff as a guest. I think our longest episode to date, because Hank has a very sort of like measured pace to the way he speaks, whereas I'm like at a mile an hour.
I haven't seen it yet. How long did it end up being?
It clocks in at 13 minutes. Like if I did the episode by myself, yeah. It would have been probably 8 minutes if I did the episode by myself, but it's so good. Like Hank just brings so much of his passion and so much of his just kind of like his real desire for the Lord into this. Like I loved just seeing him when he sent the footage over, like how animated he gets and how much he truly cares. And like the guy has been through a lot, health challenges and, like sacrificing so much to become an Orthodox Christian a couple of years ago. So it was really cool that he was able to be a part of this last episode. And I think, we kind of touch on some of these questions of like happiness and struggle. And it's a very kind of like Holy Week appropriate episode, or kind of, coronavirus appropriate episode too.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. What else is going on? Small groups. We put out some small group resources to really help people think about doing ministry in different ways. The really cool thing is, OCF, Orthodox Christian Fellowship, is actually like now putting their own kind of like structured small group ministry into practice. So we did a live training yesterday that a bunch of the OCF small group leaders are going to be a part of. The training we're going to post on YouTube probably today. There's weekly curricula. There is like guidebooks for directors of parishes and small group leaders and participants. Just a really cool opportunity for people to do the thing. And OCF is like, I think like they continue to be so cutting edge. And it's really great seeing OCF like adopt this model. So that's at y2am.org/small groups. And this is the time. It's the time to be creative, and it's the time to sort of bring people together in new and innovative ways.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the kind of points that's, most important for us to kind of like lean into in this time is like we got to think creatively about how to do this, and I think in a way that sticks, not just in a way that like outlasts, or, it's like, because I've seen things of like, I don't know, man, like I've seen people talking about like surviving the COVID pandemic and did it, and it's just like like a weird.
It's a loaded.
Yeah, it's like it's that you do that to, like that's like you striking fear into the hearts of people, right? Like the threat of the virus, it's out there, and like make sure you don't go to Trader Joe's because you'll die, and don't go, and like there's just so much like that's like survival is such a loaded word. But I guess like what I wonder about is like how do we kind of again use this as an opportunity to like be kind of more big picture, long-term creative in terms of like, I mean, one might wonder like why we weren't doing small groups before.
Yeah.
Or why we weren't doing, like these silence workshops before that have been really lovely, right? Just like short, brief moments of like tune in. Someone will walk you through like a kind of like contemplative moment together.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I sort of feel like, oh, like these are things that we probably can continue to do even when all of this is done, like as a way just to kind of like check in and whatever. And we can have our normal lives where we get to go see people and hug them and things like this, which is going to be funny, by the way, going back to hugging people. Have you thought about that? Like hugging people? I've actually hugged a couple people. I have not totally social distanced all the way,
Really?
all the time. Yeah. Like, I don't like my brother-in-law. Like, I don't know. Like, it was like, I love him. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? And like, I just wanted to hug him. I love him. I'm not sick. He's not sick. Whatever. By the way, there is a very kind of weird, like this doesn't feel like any other kind of sickness. It almost feels like we've got into like venereal disease territory when people talk about like getting it or having it or like how they got it. There's like something very.
He's got the vid. He's got the vid.
It's very strange, and there's like for sure like a shame associated with like COVID somehow of like if you got it, like what were you doing?
If only he wore a mask.
Where did you go? Where did you go? Who did you touch? Like there's just like some very, I don't know, weird. I don't even know what I was saying anymore. Forget it. Coffee. Everybody needs coffee. Am I right? This is Pop Culture Coffee Hour.
Yes.
And again, I want to give kind of, again, we're here in the middle of this thing that's just wreaking havoc on people's lives. And I want to throw another plug in there for my friends over at Cartel Coffee Lab out here in Tempe, Arizona. They make incredible coffee. And I've even had several people send me messages recently. There it is.
I am currently making my way. I got 4 bags a couple weeks ago, 2 of each, and I'm currently making my way through the Torora Axe, I suppose.
Ooh, I've heard really good things about that one.
I like it a lot. It's very baker's chocolate and hazelnut with a creamy body, but it's very bright as well too. So it's not like super kind of low notes. It's just it's very refreshing, and it's got that sort of like richness to it. It's very good. It's very good.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I like this. I've got 1 more bag of this and then 2 more bags of the green one. I forget what the green one is.
Is that the Santa Isabel?
Let me check.
That one is so good.
Oh, no, not Santa Isabel. I got Nazareth. Nazareth Natural.
Oh, that's the one that I ordered. I love natural coffees. Natural coffees, brought to you by Pop Culture Coffee Hour and Cartel Coffee Lab. Not an official collaboration, but close enough. Yeah, I love natural coffee. So go over there, get yourself a bag. I ordered a bag of that Nazareth Natural. I also ordered a bag of their Kenya. So if you're interested, go to www.cartelcoffeelab.com/collections. I cannot words today. /collections/coffee and buy coffee right now. You won't regret it. Use the promo code Stay Home to get free shipping. That's pretty cool. Live it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an opportunity, if you're not a fan of coffee, right? Just like some other local merchant that you can help out during this really difficult time. Because the economy is being really weird right now. And if you can, definitely do what you can.
True that. Truth be that.
So
Well,
in a very roundabout way, we have finally finished the first segment of this podcast follow-up.
Bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da, ba-da-do. Sorry, that was no Sports Center.
That was delightful. Yeah.
Wait, that was Baseball Tonight.
Yeah, that was Baseball Tonight.
Sports Center's da-da-da, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
See, I didn't really watch Sports Center. I only cared about baseball, so I watched Baseball Tonight with Chris Bergman. That was the way to go.
Remember baseball? That was a thing.
Remember anything?
Those were things.
I remember things that were things. Once upon a time when anything was possible, and we could all be whatever we wanted.
Yeah, those were the days. So
weird.
Should we start checking in?
Let's check.
Yeah. So we've already gotten into it, obviously, but you kind of created like a bunch of like fun little questions that we could use to just sort of check in, take the temperature of our hearts in this weird time. Feel free to, if you're listening to the podcast with somebody else, feel free to use these as like a conversation starter, kind of check in with yourself. The live version of this will go on YouTube probably tomorrow. The audio version will go up on the feed next week. But whenever you finally get to the podcast, feel free to kind of use it as an opportunity to check in. Just take your temperature, and hopefully you're not feverish, either physically or emotionally in these very tough times.
If you are, stay home.
Yeah. Yes.
And order Cartel coffee with the same promo code of stay home. So
not a paid advertisement.
No, definitely not. Definitely not paid. Poor Cartel. First question that I have for you, Steve, and first question I have is, what so far has been the low part, like the lowest part of this quarantine for you?
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. I think I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to answer it kind of on different levels, kind of cognitively and emotionally. I think the lowest part, the hardest part of this for me has been just like not being able to physically be in church. Mm-hmm. And I think like it's been, and again, this is kind of like part of my reflection questions, like what am I actually sort of longing for? But I realize as we've gone through the weeks and there's been those sort of like those milestones, like Compline normally every Monday, and Pre-Sanctified normally every Wednesday, and Akathist normally every Friday, and the sort of the rhythm of the Sundays as we go through as we go through Great Lent, like just not being able to like actively participate in that because live streams are really, really, really inadequate. And they're hard to pay attention to. And I just kind of find myself like checking email in the midst of this because like, oh, like something pops into my head and I open up my other tab in the browser and I kind of like log on. So it's just kind of like realizing these moments of like, it's so hard to actually invest myself in the thing that I'm supposed to be investing myself in. And it's so easy to succumb to temptations. And it's so easy to, it's been really, 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 really difficult. Really, really difficult. But so that kind of has been like this constant sort of low point. I think in terms of like my own emotional low point, there was a day a couple of weeks ago, like I just woke up really grumpy. And I think I just woke up really mad at the world. And I like was mad at the bishops, and I was mad at the president of the government, and I was mad at the governor, and I was mad at the mayors, and I was mad at I was just mad at everybody for a whole bunch of different.
Were you mad at me?
Probably. I was just mad at everybody.
Damn it, Christian.
Such a grumpy pants. And that might have been like my like actual like just like low point of the entire thing. I was just like really angry, and it was like not at a thing in particular. It was just like everything sucks, everyone sucks. I hate all of this. And I was just kind of like a big sourpuss, and I had nobody to take it out on because I live at home. I think I was just like, I'm going to play video games for the next 8 hours because I'm just pissed at everything.
Did you?
Yes, I ended up playing a lot of video games that day to sort of numb the pain. So
what'd you play?
About what was it, a week and a half ago, I did this thing, a theology on Twitch with some of our friends out in Dawama. And Anthony Ruggiero, who's a buddy of mine from seminary, he invited me on like a Friday to do kind of play video games and chat about stuff. And to set it up, I ended up re-downloading Steam, which is that online video platform, which I haven't touched in like 4 or 5 years. And I downloaded it, and then I saw my old favorite game, Civilization 5, and I was like, ooh, Civilization 5. Let me make a new civilization. And I kind of like dabbled with it a couple of days, and then I had that really grumpy day, and I was like, I'm just gonna conquer the entire world. I just want to like just defeat the entire world, and I'm gonna just like.
Did you wipe out everything with a pandemic? Where you just like viruses? Everyone gets a virus. You get a virus, and you get a virus.
I dropped nuclear bombs on another civilization. It was terrible.
You were angry.
I dropped nuclear bombs on the Iroquois. It was between the Greeks, me, Alexander, and Hiawatha, the leader of the Iroquois. It was down to us two at the very end. I dropped nuclear bombs. It was terrible.
You're a really bad person.
I am a really bad person. It's true. It's coming out. That was my low.
Go to church. You do need
my low point was unleashing nuclear hellfire on an innocent civilization.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it started low, but then you ended really like on a high note for sure. Like,
I mean, I was the
bomb everybody.
Unquestioned demagogue of the world. So I got that going for me.
Did you win just by nuking everyone?
I actually, there were like 2 cities left, and I stopped before I had full victory. But he kept asking for peace, and I kept refusing. I'm like, nope, we're not ending until this is done.
Did they fight back? Like, how did
they tried? Not well.
Oh no.
It got to the point where I had like modern 20th century battleships because my technology had advanced so far, and they had these like rinky-dink wooden things, and I was like sinking them with my submarines and launching like atomic hellfire from above. It was just so unfair and so bad. I stayed up until 2 a.m. doing it too. It was just like,
oh no. And then you woke up and live streamed the liturgy the next morning. In one window while
checking my email
in the other. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. That was my low. Hilarious. What's your low? What's your low of the quarantine?
The low of the quarantine for me. It's funny. Generally speaking, it's been pretty okay. We have a really beautiful backyard, and the weather's been really nice, and we got bikes, and that's been really great. But I think that I think the low of it probably has been just not being able to attend church just kind of freely and regularly. I also think it's just it's getting to the point where it's just a little bit, I think, tiresome and difficult to like be afraid to go to the store, like, and not in the sense of like, oh my gosh, like I'm so scared, like I don't want to go, like but it's just like, like, I have to put on my stuff and like take a shower when I come home, and like there's just so many things to like, I don't know, be concerned about, and I think it just feels kind of exhausting, to have to be. And I was saying this to my wife the other night, like that just everything feels like you have to be so intentional right now. Like about when if you have like just like a frog in your throat or something, and you have to like whatever, it's like, oh God, he's got the COVID, and like you don't, you want to look, I'm about to cough into my right here like a vampire, and like there's just too much to like be mindful of, and then also on top of that, like, and you can't have alcohol during the weekend, you can't eat a hamburger, and it's just like, like let's just be done with all of the everything. So I think there's that bit, and then also just like missing hanging out with friends and stuff. I think that's also been hard, because I like my friends and I like to be around them. So, but none of it has been like unmanageable or like totally disorienting or dysregulating. I mean, I've always kind of been work from home for the most part anyway. Yeah. So like to that extent, like it's, nice to have everybody kind of at home as well. Like, haha, you all get to do it now. You people with children in your house now you understand. Now you understand working from home with children in the house. who are like, Daddy, Daddy, get a snack, da, blah, 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 blah. And like now that all of them are home all the time, it's that all the time. So I got my nice little noise canceling headphones and I ignore the crap out of them.
This guy dads.
Figure it out, children. Oh, you're bleeding? Don't care. Just kidding.
Long hair because I haven't had a haircut in a month and a half. Don't care.
Yep, I know. That's what this is going on right here. I got like my little Superman Jerry curl.
Nice. Nice. Your Superman Jerry curl. There's a weird twist on the character of Superman. I like it. Twist, pun intended. Their little hair twist there. I like it. I like it. You did it.
It's a little too centered, though. It looks like it just got like a serpentine.
It's like a very thick Harry Potter scar down the middle of your forehead.
Indeed.
Ooh, Voldemort hurt you.
Okay, so if you were, if that was the low part, then what was the high part for you? What's been the high part?
So the high part, I think again, there's a couple of layers to the question, right? Like I think so much for the high of this quarantine has been seeing some of the dumb artificial boundaries in the church kind of like fading away. Like even this sort of like these ministry partnerships that we've been developing, like people coming together and like making stuff together and collaborating on stuff and really like working hard creatively to serve the people of God, without regard to the kind of like, this is that ministry and this is that jurisdiction. And like, you know, I mean, it's like, it's been so beautiful, like working more intentionally with OCF and Yes, and stuff that we've been posting on social media, like we've been putting these like funtivities every day, and now we're doing these Holy Week table talks, and those have been coming to us from our friends in Dawama, you know, which is like in the Antiochian Archdiocese, and you know, like some magic videos and craft videos, and like again, people from like outside of the Archdiocese in this like narrow sense of the word, but we've been doing this kind of like just thing where people are joyfully being Orthodox Christians here in the United States together, and it's been so uplifting to see that, you know, the generosity and the open hands and the, like, we're just here to serve the people. And we want people to know that they are loved. And we want people to know that we're sort of in this together, not in kind of a slogan-y sense, but we really are the body of Christ. And I've had a lot of joy and hope come from that over the course of the last couple of weeks. So that's been kind of like a sustained high. I think like a kind of like a more focused high. A couple of weeks ago, I've been taking walks from the beginning of this, but I sort of started taking detours to go pass by like my mom and my cousin and his kids. And we have kind of these nice like chats in the yard, appropriately distanced. We're all kind of like triangulated, you know, like in the farthest corners of the yard. But it was cool after a couple of weeks of like literally interacting with nobody in person to just kind of go and sit and kind of see my family across the yard and have like an in-person conversation. That was kind of like, oh yeah, I missed that. It was nice. It was really nice to have that.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your high so far?
Yeah, I think just like that kind of what, like I said, we haven't been necessarily been just a couple of times, like generally speaking, we've been very, very, very distancy with people. But on a couple of like the high important days kind of for our family and for the church year, like we have to engage in some kind of like outside social distancing, generally speaking. It's hard with kids, right? But we had our family over for like my sister-in-law's birthday. We all sat out back, and like normally we'd just be inside and kind of like whatever, but we all sat outside. We put our little lawn chairs all around our backyard and all of that kind of stuff. And it was such a wonderful time just getting to like hang out and be together. We had a fire that night and everyone sat, you know, 6 feet away from each other around the fire. And it was just really enjoyable, I think, to be able to be in person. And like, I mean, we were all outside, and it was just like really lovely. And I don't think we would have done that had it not been for the vid. And we did the same thing with like Palm Sunday. We all got together with like our kids' godparents to like just have a little bit of like a shared feast in some way, and did the same thing sitting outside. And we have this, you know, out like big tent or whatever, like to make shade. And so we took that over to their house and set it up out in their front yard and sat out there and just ate fish and Like that, like those were really, really nice things. And those are kind of like maybe the moments, but I think just even getting to read to my kids every night, like that has been, that's been really, really enjoyable for me. I think getting to just be like a little bit more of the dad that I want to be, as opposed to the dad that I often am and the dad that my kids often get, which is just kind of tired and irritated. I still get a little irritated. But sure. I think having the opportunity to kind of like, because even if I'm seeing clients like late into the night, like I do sometimes, I'll usually end at like 8 or whatever. I'll just be able to walk right out and go see them right in their room, as opposed to like closing up the office and putting things away. And then I'm getting out of there at like 8:45, and then I'm home at like 9 and everyone's asleep. So it's like, I just miss moments of interaction with them. Or if I have a break at like 5:30, I can have dinner with them real quick, and then I can go see a client at like 6:30, and it all is, I think like just getting more of that has been really, really good. So it's nice to not be running around so much, because running from thing to thing and traveling for work and like all of this other stuff is, I feel like pulled me away from my family at a lot of really important times. So it's nice to be able to kind of re-engage and reinvest in that with them. So it's been cool. That's been a really cool part of this thing, I think.
Thank God. That's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
So here's another question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
You go.
So here's a great question that you put on the outline here. Where do you feel like you've seen the Lord in all of this?
Everywhere. The end. Your turn.
Agreed. Next question.
Yeah. I really do. I early on kind of, saw like things from people saying like, this virus is from the devil and like it's destroying our economy and it's like obviously like the devil is trying to whatever. And I've never felt that way. Like I've never felt that like this is from the devil. I have felt that the devil certainly has a plan for it, for sure. But I definitely feel like this is just a virus on the one hand, right? Like this is a thing that happens. But I also feel like that the Lord has given it to us for our sanctification and for our salvation. And early on, I kind of have been thinking about this as like the ultimate kind of gift to help us smash our idols. And I think that is by and large like what this has been a time for. And it's been so interesting to me, like, as more and more things shut down and more people feel like the sting of this in every kind of way possible. Kind of the whole conversation around like essential services and non-essential services and like all of this kind of stuff, and the church kind of being considered non-essential and healthcare being considered essential, and like, just seeing some of the, or like childcare service being essential, right? Seeing some of the dialogue around that in terms of like just how offended people like we are by that idea that somehow like the church should be shut down while childcare services remain open, or like while people can, I don't know. It's just, I begin to feel like, again, like there's this, I just have a hard time imagining the Lord being like offended by that. Like he who goes silently to his crucifixion and death, like he's not like, listen, I'm just as essential as anyone else. Like I am just as essential to this whole thing. Like he just goes, even though the world deems him non-essential, right? And he bears the crucifixion with grace and peace, and willingly. He doesn't throw a fit about it. He's not offended that like the Jews yell crucify me. He's not like, you guys, like I'm here to save you. Like I don't understand why you got to be so angry with me. Like that's not fair. I'm an essential service, right? Like salvation is essential. He doesn't do that. He just kind of bears it and shows us what it means to love. And I sort of feel like I see I keep seeing the Lord inviting us into something here. inviting him into saying, like, inviting us into being like him, even now, again, this week, as we're being led where we don't want to go. And can we bear that with grace? And can we bear that with joy, even? Not in a kind of like silver lining way, right? I don't think that we should put silver lining on any of this. I think that that's insanity. That said, I do think that there's moments for things like some good news, right? Like the John Krasinski thing, which is really delightful and enjoyable. But I don't know that I think we would be missing an opportunity to become like our Lord if we just tried to kind of put silver linings on stuff. But I do think that I see God all over the place in terms of trying to smash our idols and make us more uncomfortable, and to therefore make us more like him, to lean on him, because I think he's putting us all in positions where we're being stretched. You know, like I'm around my family and children all the time. And as an introvert and someone who deeply values inner peace, it's hard for me to hold on to whatever illusion I have of that, just because they're not around me. Like, and I think that's what it is. Like when they're not around, I have the illusion of being at peace, right? But when they are here and like I'm in the noise of the city of my own home, I begin to realize that there is actually no peace inside of me, and like I need to acquire the true spirit of peace, right? Like this is what the Lord, I think, begins to really reveal me, that I'm not that peaceful of a person. I'm actually pretty anxious and stressed out and like not the best dad in the world. And so like now he's showing me the truth about myself, that peace has to be a gift from above and not kind of, you know, the fruit of escaping my home. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. That I think is very convicting and very beautifully said. Because I think I've seen, it's been hard, but I think I've seen God at work in a lot of this as well. And my struggle is totally different. Like my struggle, I'm realizing, is like I tend to be very performative. I tend to sort of like be better in front of an audience than I tend to be by myself. And so much of this has been time spent by myself. Like the Lord has sort of like taken away the audience. And he's like, okay, who are you really? When nobody's looking, like who is Steve actually?
He bombs civilizations left and right. That's what Steve does.
It's true. It is totally true. It's totally true. Steve straight up sucks.
I'm 99% sure that Steve is Kylo Ren.
I knew from, hey, I'm Steve. Hey, everybody, this is Steve. That's what I knew.
Parentheses, not actually Steve.
So yeah, this has been hard.
I haven't had my muffin yet, Matt.
I love that. That's so good. But yeah, I think that's been my struggle, and the Lord has definitely been like at work in a lot of it, and it's hard, right? And I think like, you know, these get to some of those like really deep questions that I think we've been asking for a while too. Like is the Lord just this sort of like fluffy bunny in the sky that gives us comfort, right? He's kind of like a mystical security blanket, or is he the one that, you know, goes to Abraham in his old age and is like, you're going to have a kid, and you're going to pick up your entire family and household, and you're going to move to the promised land. You know, you're going to take your son and you're going to take him up the mountain and you're going to sacrifice him. Like the Lord, like you were saying, the Lord pushes us into these difficult situations, and he stretches us. And like, that's when he's there, right? It's like, it's not simply the warm and fuzzies, like, you know, buddy Jesus. It's the cross. You're not good at this. Here you go.
Yeah. It's the cross, right? Like everything is the cross. Like that's how we are saved. It's not, we can't avoid it. We can't get around it. Christ died to show us the way through it, right? Like to change what the cross does. Like the cross is real no matter what. Death is real no matter what. But because of our life-giving Savior, like he changes what death does. And now it becomes, instead of the path of total despair and separation, it's the path to joy and life. Like it's mind-boggling. And I think the same is true for us in this time. Like and we talked about this on the Areopagus, like, can we begin to think of this as the precious and life-giving coronavirus rather than kind of like, oh, this is so bad and it's so hard. But like, is there some way in this that I can actually begin to taste of true life, of being kind of, again, like even as I think about going to the store, can I go to the store in such a way that I'm mindful of my neighbor instead of going there to get what I want? Because that's why we go to the store. We're like, oh, I need snacks. I want snacks. Give me all the snacks. And like maybe now we can just be like, well, we don't really need the snacks all the time. Maybe sometimes we can go get snacks. But when we go get the snacks, like let's not be jerks about it. Like let's actually be the kind of people who like go into it in a way that like is like Jesus, right? Like how does Jesus respond to COVID? Like Jesus could get the virus because he's a person, right? So what would that mean to treat this way like Jesus?
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to be like, well, the Lord surely will protect me because I'm the Son of God. In fact, that's actually the very temptation that Jesus is given as he stands on the pinnacle of the temple. Throw yourself down. Put yourself in harm's way.
Yeah. If you're really the Son of God.
Yeah, because the angels won't let anything bad happen to you because you're the divine body and blood of Christ. But it's insanity. Mm-hmm. And we go out there like making heroes of people who do that kind of stuff as if like their faith is like such a testament. But it's silliness. It's the exact temptation that the devil gives the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Lord responds, do not put the Lord your God to the test. And I think like that's kind of how we need to be responding here. Right? Like, am I going out like, look at me and look at my faith and look at my da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because that's just, again, that's, flag waving.
Yes. And that I think is like some of the stuff that frustrated me about, like when nobody is looking, we're not doing any services and we're sort of doing services specifically to live stream them. And then when the live streams are over, we're going to stop doing those services. Some of it comes across as hand waving and some of it comes across as like, very, they're like religious freedom sort of arguments, right? Like there's kind of this political veneer that comes into a lot of like our outrage that we have as Christians, right? And it's not, and as you said, right, when Christ faces politics, he just kind of sits there like as a mute, right? As the lamb before the shearers. And I get the instinct, right? I get the instinct to be frustrated, and I get the instinct to sort of like have a cause and so forth.
But it's our right.
About a cause. Yeah,
it's our right. Now, if there's one thing Jesus was concerned about, it's your rights. I have come that they may have their rights.
That they may have their cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I shall be taken away from you, and when I come back, you shall have your rights, and no one will ever take them from you.
Yeah. That linking that up to Christ on the pinnacle of the temple, I think is really, really powerful. Yeah. How much of this is about testing the Lord? How much of this is about like kind of standing up and like, if this is real, right? We're going to sort of flout this, or we're going to stand up and we're going to make a stand because that's really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm sure Jesus must have gotten sick at some point in his life. He's right.
Yeah.
Person.
Yeah.
Ontologically the same as we are.
Yeah.
He can get sick.
He died, but I'm sure he had the sniffles.
Yeah. Our bodies die from sickness though. Like in his resurrected body, like he won't die, but like we will. I don't know. Like I'm not resurrected. Are you? Have you been resurrected yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad we've got that in common. So I don't know. I think that there's something to be said about like, how do we just continue to see like the Lord in this as he's trying to make us more like him, to go to the store in a way that loves neighbor, to, I don't know. That's kind of where I've seen the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Being intentionally Christians, not simply being intentional consumers or intentional whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd said too, right, that like even as you've kind of like been in this, like you see the Lord kind of pulling away the performative aspect. And I think that's so much of what he's doing. He's just like, he's, going full Karate Kid and like sweep kicking us right now. And he's just like, boom, you're not as sturdy as you think you are. Meet the back of my foot. Or whatever. And you said like he's kind of asking you the question like, who is Steve really? So what are you learning about yourself then? Like what have you learned about who Steve is really?
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of like, it's the pinnacle of something that I've been working on, especially with therapy over the course of the last year and a half or so. But really learning that a lot of sort of Steve is like performing for the cameras or performing for an audience. And like Steve is great when he has to give a sermon, or great when he has to give a talk, or great when he has to sort of like present this kind of polished vision of what he is. But what about like the Steve when nobody is looking, right? Like I realize this actually doing like the silence workshops that we do a couple of times a week. Like it is wonderful, and it is so easy for me to do it when it's on my calendar and I have to do it in front of an audience. But when it's kind of like just Steve's time to say his prayers in the morning or say his prayer, it's so hard. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. And so a couple of weeks ago, my therapist, who's also an Orthodox Christian, and he's great. Like we've started talking about this because it's been really like grinding down at me. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you homework, and you're just going to like, you're going to say your prayers. You're going to spend 15 minutes a day being quiet and saying the Jesus prayer. And you're just doing it for you. Just do it for you. Like be conscious of the fact that you were doing this for the sake of your relationship with the Lord. You're not doing it so that you can teach anybody. You're not doing it like, you're just doing it because you are a child of God and you want to have a relationship with the Lord. That's your homework. And he was like, and also I want you to play 15 minutes of guitar every day. You're not playing for anybody else. You enjoy the beauty of the music. Like you were doing it for yourself. And it's been hard. I haven't been doing my homework every day because it is still sometimes so much easier to do things for others than it is to do it for myself. And like, I've been unpacking why that is.
What's he going to say when you tell him that?
I don't know.
That you've let him down by not taking care of yourself. You should have done it for him, at least to make him happy.
Well, and he said, if you need me as part of this, well, he said, if you need me as part of this, frame it as you're doing this for the sake of the work we are doing together. You're not doing it for me. You're doing it for this path that I'm walking with you, but it's still ultimately like for you. And it's like, just kind of like me reframing it and realizing like to have a sort of healthy inner life is not to be selfish or whatever. To sort of like value myself enough to have a functional sort of like functional spiritual life and a functional kind of like interior life, a functional emotional life. It's a lot of stuff like layers of self-loathing and layers of sort of like feeling of being that I'm inadequate, and layers of that I need to sort of like earn people's praise in order, like all these sorts of things that I've been talking about for the last couple of many months now are just kind of clicking into place now that it's like, it's just me and no stage. So that's what I'm learning about myself, and now sort of just taking it to the next level and trying to follow through with it. So it's been tiring, and it's been hard, and it's been, not always successful. And for somebody that's sort of, a lot of his persona is around kind of the appearance of success. Like it's a hard thing to swallow sometimes. So
no, I that definitely makes sense. And I think that is almost how I'm positive that this is how the Lord is in this, because we begin to see kind of like the yucky, right? We begin to see the yucky things about ourselves. It's
what are you learning? What are you learning about Christian?
Again, I think part of it too is that I'm not nearly as peaceful as I think that I am.
Yeah.
I am not nearly as arrived as I would like to believe that I am as a person. I kind of feel like without the overall like structure of life kind of being what I had gotten used to it being, like, the kind of routines and rhythms and all of that kind of stuff that I've become so used to, that I'm just kind of like a disaster of a person. Like, okay, like I can't, like for a while I was like getting up, like really, I was getting up early to kind of like just get into like a good mental space before my kids woke up. Because it just takes me a long time to wake up. Like it probably takes me about an hour and a half before I even can have like a cogent thought. And so I tried to like wake up like an hour and a half before everybody else in my family, just to kind of like get the wheels turning. And I just can't bring myself to do that anymore. Like I'm just exhausted every morning, and like I'm out of that rhythm. And I think like I feel kind of like stressed out all the time about that, and feeling like I should always be doing more, like going to bed earlier, or like some, it's just like everything. I've been having a hard time kind of like getting my feet on the ground kind of in like that particular way. And I've realized like how much that actually causes like a great deal of anxiety in me. And so I feel like a lot of my kind of inner peace has depended on external factors kind of being stable. So like, does that make any sense? Like my peace is totally. It's not real. It's like not a real peace.
It comes from the outside in rather than the inside out.
Yeah. Depending on how quiet the kids are being, or how like, structured the day is, or whatever. But even something just as simple as like, I've been trying to just like get up and like take a shower every morning and get dressed like I'm getting ready for the day, and like that kind of stuff's just still really like, that's really been helping, I think, kind of at least go, okay, like I'm in a better mental space. But yeah, I've realized how much like I just don't have the peace that I wish that I had. You know, it's not a virtue it's not a virtue I possess that I thought that I possessed.
Yeah.
So the Lord's going like, you got a lot to learn, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You're pretty upset
and
by
that's
things pretty easily.
and that seems like one of those places of tension, right? Because it's not to eliminate the things outside of our life that gives us structure. Like, I mean, the church gives us normal rhythms. Like the church says, this is when we fast and this is when we feast and this is when we pray, right? Like on some level, the church gives this as well, but like what a powerful lesson to, right? And when those things kind of fall away, what do I have myself? Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful, man.
Yeah. So,
well, so
go ahead.
Go for it.
You.
I was gonna skip a question and actually go to the one after that. What's one thing you hope you can carry from this as you're thinking about the stuff that like you're struggling with, right? And kind of like new ways of approaching daily routines and so forth. What's one thing that you can, if the quarantine lifts tomorrow, what's one thing you hope you can take with you?
I hope I can keep reading to my kids every night. Like, I think like that has been just like a really enjoyable like dynamic to our relationship, because it like gives us a kind of this like other thing to talk about of like, oh, what do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think Gryffindor is going to win the House Cup? Or like just like that kind of stuff. And seeing like my oldest daughter, who very often is not the most excitable of our kids, right? Like our middle daughter Ava is like all excitement all the time, and it's almost like, all right, kid, like there are like bad parts to life too, right? Like there are things that like are not just only positive feelings. So
look outside.
So, like, I think we've even told you that, like, at dinner, like often we've kind of gotten out of the habit of it, but we'll say like, what was the low part of your day and what was the high part of your day? And Ava almost always has zero low parts, and she's like, I don't know, like nothing. Even though like we could think of probably like 3 or 4 moments where like things were pretty low for you, Ava. Like you were having a really hard time when you fell off your bike, or when you did this thing, or you did that thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like Elena has a little bit of a harder time of like kind of thinking about like the good things that have happened. Like she has, I think, a little bit more of a memory toward kind of like the negative stuff that has gone on. And so to see her kind of coming alive with like some anticipation and excitement, and like, can we do this? Like, what do you think is going to happen? And like, being able to walk the tension of like, oh, the book is kind of scary, but it's also really exciting. To see that kind of developing in her has been really, really cool. So I hope that is something that I can take with me. And I think that this has really helped me see, in a lot of ways, like how much I've kind of like let work take life away from me. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like I don't want to miss out on my life because of a busy schedule. So I, feel like it's given me a lot to think about in terms of how do I make a quieter life, so that I have time for what I really care about. Because like at the end of the day, like I don't know, like that relationship with my children is like what God has given me is like of my primary responsibility, and with my wife, like this is your primary responsibility. And if the other ones are getting in the way, then that's a problem. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's what I hope. I hope I can just keep having the time and the energy for my family in like a really
that's
positive
beautiful
way. Yeah. How about you? What do you hope
really
you can
beautiful.
take with it?
I hope I can continue to take just like Steve time. I hope I can sort of like continue to, get better about actually doing it every day, but continue to like say my prayers once a day, twice a day, whatever it is. Like continue to be a little bit still and open my presence to God, even when nobody is watching. Continue to, play the guitar just because I like it, and it's okay for me to enjoy something and want to do something. And spend a little bit more time kind of constructively, being who I am and who God has called me to be, rather than just sort of like wasting time on the couch watching Netflix or bombing the Incas into oblivion, or, whatever it is, kind of these distractions. as opposed to just kind of like real Steve time, kind of like learning and growing and flourishing, even when nobody is looking. Because it's not about getting the grade, or it's not about getting positive feedback. It's just like, this is good. And it's good to do uplifting and lovely things, to read, not because there's a book report at the end that has to be written, but because it's a good book. To pray, not because anybody's watching, right? Or because, just because the Lord is there. That's what I hope to be able to do, even when, we start going back into it and doing the retreats and all that sort of stuff, right? Because that sort of on stage is going to come back again, just to sort of continue to take time off stage to be a real human.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'll be, I mean, that kind of stuff only sounds good, right? To like, move toward that more kind of solid humanity. It's hard. This has been such a good and difficult season, that none of us is ever going to forget.
Totally.
It's historic.
100%.
Like this is a historical moment. It's crazy.
It's going to be in the textbooks. Well, to lighten the mood a little bit, so we've got about 10 minutes left before we're done, and we've got our top 5 to get through too. But maybe kind of one last question that I think we might have time for. What's the first thing you're going to do when this is done?
I'm going to go touch strangers right on their face.
You're going to go full Billy on the street.
Yeah. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go work at a coffee shop. I'm going to go sit and have a cup of coffee, or I'm going to go like to my favorite brewery with my friends and have a beer. Like those are like the things that I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to go somewhere and just sit with people, or like, I don't know, like that's all I really want anyway. Like I don't find myself desiring to do a whole lot of other things. I just want to like go be out in public with my people.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I like that. I want to share a meal with people. I think the first thing that I want to like either have a really good steak or a really good hamburger or something, and just sort of sit at a table with family, friends, whoever it is, just people that I care about, right? Like you and me, we need to go and we need to have another cowboy steak. That's what we need. We just need to sort of sit there, right? And have this 36-ounce monstrosity.
Yeah. To be clear, it was not 36 ounces, everybody.
But it was close.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like 35 and a half.
It was so good. I regret nothing.
I regret nothing except for almost everything. It was so good.
You wasted your time on the potatoes. You needed to focus more on the meat. But that's what I want. I want to be able to sort of like look across the face, like see my friends, see family, right? My cousins, like people that I care about, right? My good friends, people that I care about, and have good food, something preferably meaty, right? Something that is either like a big slab of something or a ground patty of something. Not the food my food eats, as we've had for the course of the duration of the fast, but I want actual food.
Yes.
And I want it with actual people. I don't want to eat here like in my apartment by myself. I want to like just take a juicy bite of a burger and look into the face of somebody who's taking a big juicy bite out of their burger and have that moment, right? You kind of like, you bite into something delicious and you kind of lock eyes with the person you're having. It's just like,
yep,
that's what I want. That just kind of like,
we're in this together. We are in this together.
Yeah, that's what I want.
All right. Well, shall we top 5?
Let's top 5. We haven't top 5'd in a while.
We haven't, but I thought today would be kind of a fun one to do.
I agree.
So,
what's our top 5 this week?
Top 5 is the top 5 disasters that you thought would end the world. So I'll start, and I'm going to go with the most obvious one, and that's just a meteor. Like I thought for sure that we were going to be hit by like a giant asteroid that would, I've seen those movies, Deep Impact and such.
Armageddon.
And Armageddon, right? Like we all know that like, I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep because I'll miss you, babe.
Yeah, we know Aerosmith is the soundtrack to the end of the world.
Yeah, we know. We've been there and back. And I just thought like that makes sense to me. Like it's fitting, you know, here we are hurtling through space. Why not have space hurtling towards us? So that's kind of my thought as like how this was all going to end. Plus it'd be a pretty cool show right before it ended.
You'd see it. You'd see it coming.
Fireworks. Unlike this virus, which is just invisible. The heck?
Makes for bad TV.
Yeah, seriously. I thought about like what if it, like when it's going to be like the COVID-19 movie, like COVID-19 the movie this summer. Watch from home. Like it might. Like what would that be? Like it'd be the most boring like outbreak movie ever. Just like, and then everyone stayed home. And then people got it like the hero, you know, or like the main character of the story like goes to the grocery store, and like that's how they get it. And then like have to overcome. It's just like it would be the most boring movie of all time.
Honey, I found scallions. They're fresh.
Yeah, because it's not like people are like dead in the streets or they're zombies or anything like that. It's like,
thank God.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
but not for a movie. Like it's a boring movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, like the second act of the movie is going to be about WHO funding and just super not fun.
He's at it again.
Meteor. I like that. Meteor for number 5.
Yeah.
So for number 4, I'm going in a different way because I've also seen these movies. I thought the world was going to end with climate change. You remember like the movie where the Statue of Liberty freezes? Like it literally just the whole world turns into like a giant icicle.
Yeah, wasn't it called like the day before yesterday or tomorrow after we go to sleep or something like that? Like
the day
Jake
before
Gyllenhaal
the day
movie, right?
following the first equinox of the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal.
This day before the day following the first equinox of summer.
It's how we calculate Pascha, except not.
It's after the Jewish Passover, only sometimes.
Exactly. One man. One red egg. So yeah, I thought it was going to be climate change. I thought like the world was just going to turn into a giant icicle, or the world was just going to flood, or you know, like the library here in Manhattan was just going to turn into like a giant frozen tundra, and what's his face was going to put on snowshoes, and he was going to sort of like track across the iceberg that was covering Manhattan. Like that's how I thought it was going to happen, but nope. If anything, there's dolphins in the canals in Venice. Like the if anything, the environment has not been this healthy in like 100 years,
which is incredible. Of all the things, you know, that was gonna reverse the curse. Like
it is kind of amazing. Like again, like I'm not a scientist and I haven't like measured this in sort of any detail, but it is kind of a cool look at like how resilient the world is as like a system, right?
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
You know, we quieted down for a month, and like I don't know if you're seeing this in Phoenix, but like I definitely get the sense when I look out into the sky, like the air seems clearer.
For sure, absolutely here, for sure. It's
you know,
crazy.
the air smells fresher. Like, you know, because especially now that here there's some trees that are in bloom, and I feel like I turn a corner and there's just flowers in the air, and you know, like the sky, like the moon is brighter at night. Like there's just like, yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So that's my 4.
So I'm going to go with number 3, and I'm going to go with Sharknadoes 1 through 6. Like that is how the world is for sure going to end.
Were there actually 6?
They made 6 Sharknadoes. To be clear, I saw 0 of them, except for the clip that you and I watched that one day, which could accurately just be described as sharks in space. Like that is the only way to describe what was happening in that moment of sharks hurtling through space,
swimming through space, the vacuum of space.
But I mean, that I can think of any other way that is more terrifying than sharks flying through the air at you, eating you. Where do these sharks come from? I don't know. Are they the ones who generate the Sharknado, or are they just swept up in them? And you know, the question I guess is like, why are the sharks NATOing at all? Do they? I don't know. how does this keep happening? Like why
Yeah.
and why has there not been, precautions taken to make sure that it doesn't happen again? And when can we expect another one?
Yeah.
Like these are the questions that nobody wants to ask, but I want to ask.
But Christian Gonzalez, intrepid reporter, on the case.
I think I'll run for president and base my entire campaign on ending Sharknadoes.
And then when no Sharknadoes happen, you can point to your successful track record of 0 Sharknadoes under your administration.
Exactly.
Can I be your campaign manager?
Absolutely.
Nice. We did it.
So that's it. Sharknadoes killing everybody.
Yeah. That seems like a very realistic way for the world to end. For number 2, I'm going to go with WALL-E. Like yes. Honestly, like in terms of like how I thought the world would actually end, it would be with us in kind of like moving chairs with screens in front of our faces 24 hours a day, just pumping junk food into our very soft, very large bodies. That's how I thought like the world would end.
Very low bone density.
Yeah, exactly. Just like covered in bruises and bed sores because we haven't gotten out of our little chairs. Snickers bars whenever we want them, nachos on demand, whatever it is. Just kind of like watching the 24-hour news.
You got to have it in a cup because it's all in a cup. Cupcake in a cup.
No chewing. That's right. No chewing.
Yeah, that's too much work.
Yeah.
Way too much work.
Yeah. That's what I thought. And then it turns out, no. It turns out like, no, people are baking fresh bread at home and people are taking walks outside now and people hate their screens. Like, isn't that a thing? People hate their screens. So the WALL-E doomsday scenario, not happening. It's kind of cool.
Yep. It is cool.
Yeah.
And finally, the number one way that I thought that the world would end was not with a bang, but a whimper.
Did you see that in the movie?
It's a poem.
Because I thought the world would end with thunderous applause.
I don't know that reference.
This is how democracy ends, with thunderous applause.
I don't know that reference still.
It's Padme in episode 3.
Oh, see, I forgot.
You forgot bad Star Wars.
I forgot bad Star Wars. And we just rewatched them. You and I together, we rewatched them, and I forgot all about it.
Who are you, and what have you done for Christian Gonzalez? No, Christian Gonzalez that I know would ever run for office. Who the heck are you? It's the lizard people.
Wow, that's a Sharknado.
If somebody can Photoshop a shark's head onto your body, I think that would make all of this worth it.
Oh, geez. How come when it comes down to things, you get cold brew sent to you? Like, that's what happens out of Pop Culture Coffee Hour. But I get a shark head photoshopped onto me.
Because life is unfair.
Why is that what happens? That is so unfair. No one ever sends me cold brew. Monica says that would make a great t-shirt.
Christian with a Star Wars t-shirt and a shark's head.
Yeah. No. I don't want to be a shark.
Eating a spaceship.
I want to be a person.
I'm a real boy.
It's not. I don't want that.
We started on a high, ended on a low.
Indeed, we did. Indeed, we did.
Have a really wonderful rest of Holy Week and a very beautiful and glorious and joyous Pascha.
Amen. Here we go to the rest of it. And I guess we'll be back
to the
next
resurrection.
Week. What are we doing
and
next
beyond.
Week?
I don't know. Are we doing Clone Wars
cartoon?
next week?
I think we're doing Clone Wars.
Sweet. Oh, I have to get you a list of episodes for the Clone Wars
because
you haven't watched the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. I will do that before the end of the day.
Perfect. Until we meet again.
Yeah. Or we can change it because, like, if there's no time for you to watch the episodes, I did get a really cool documentary sent to me, which could be interesting watching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk about it offline. Maybe Clone Wars at some point. Clone Wars maybe next week. I don't know.
Somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Homework.
More homework. Gah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care. God bless.